How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Ganji. Welcome to another episode of Tear Talk. Guys, we've got another video dropped by TMZ. I'm going to do it this way because we're trying to do some work around the house and kind of finding different rooms to do all these different videos in because the videos keep dropping. So it's Harvey Levin. He's going to be commenting on the grand jury update with D4vd. I know at the very beginning, I've only saw a few minutes of it, but we'll watch the whole thing now. He's going to push for some conflict between LAPD and the medical examiner, and watch his choice of verbiage. It's like just to try to promote some animosity. He puts verbiage in there that is meant to serve a purpose, meant to paint a picture that aligns with his narrative. Here it goes.
There is a grand jury that has convened in the case involving the death of Celeste Rivas. And this is a really interesting twist. And underlying it all is what I believe is a war between the LAPD and the LA County Medical Examiner.
So now watch the words that he utilizes to paint the narrative of this war. It's going to be words like block. And, you know, sometimes when you read these articles, the statements really should be taken as neutral. But if someone could put emotion behind it, then you tend to read it with that bias. And we have to be very wary of that. When we're reading statements that are in front of us, you don't want to be influenced by emotion. You want to just take the statement for what it is. So in this case here, he'll go over a statement from the medical examiner. But remember, he's put the outline that we're at war, and he's going to make this statement, even though it's a rather neutral statement, he's going to add emotion to it. So when we perceive it, we still sense animosity. So at the very beginning here, he's just promoting his war narrative. So look at the choice of words.
So here's what happened. The LA Times got hold of a petition that the LAPD filed asking to block the medical examiner from releasing any information about the death of Celeste Rivas.
So that's the first key word, block. I don't think that's how it's suggested. I think it's like, hey, right now, can we have a security hold? Can we make sure that no information is leaked? But again, to go with the aggressive narrative, let's just put out the word block. Let's just put that out there because it sounds more aggressive and it fits with the narrative that people are at war.
This is highly unusual. And as a matter of fact, the LAPD tried this back in September, and the judge in that case said, there's no basis for doing that the LAPD didn't make a case. Well, they went back again, apparently a few days ago, and they asked again, seal all the information that the medical examiner has, and that judge did it. And the medical examiner was pissed and came out.
Okay, so remember, he's painting the narrative. So I just want to mention, we covered this in videos before. They tried the first time on September 15th because I think LAPD knew where this was going to possibly go. And then it was denied. But look at it now. And now they're doing a grand jury. So, of course, they're going to do it the second time around because it's a grand jury is not done out in the open. It's done in private. So a big part of that case is evidence. And yes, sadly, Celeste Rivas Hernandez, her body is evidence. So you have to protect the evidence. So it makes total sense why the judge would want to do this the second time around. Should have done it the first time around. But here we go.
All the information that the medical examiner has, and that judge did it. And the medical examiner was pissed and came out with a statement saying it's highly unusual. They believe in transparency, obviously a problem. The LA Times.
Yeah, it doesn't mean he delivered it being pissed off. He could have said, okay, this is highly unusual. We do want to push for transparency. And it makes sense. It's politics. So maybe they know if the medical examiner quickly agreed with it, maybe there could be political ramifications. So they pretend to put a little something out there. Hey, we really don't do this. We believe in transparency, but it looks like we have to. But the fact that they highlight, well, he was pissed and this is their reaction, it just puts a little flavor in what could have just been a neutralized statement, a very neutral statement. So I went back a little bit.
Medical examiner has, and that judge did it. And the medical examiner was pissed and came out with a statement saying it's highly unusual. They believe in transparency, obviously a problem.
I wonder if the medical examiner actually said he was pissed. Where does that come from? I mean, he may have a statement, but this could be business as usual for them. So again, just going into his narrative.
Times has seen that petition. The petition itself is sealed. So you can't even see the LAPD applying to get the order. It's all sealed. The LA Times, they say they've seen the petition, and in it, it says that a grand jury was convened in mid-November, just a week or so ago, and it's an investigative grand jury where they can subpoena witnesses and help the LAPD get information. Because think about it. The LAPD calls somebody and says, we want to talk to you. They say no. But if the grand jury subpoenas them, they have to come and they have to testify.
Now, guys, I did a whole show just right before this one that explains this whole grand jury process, but it makes sense. But there's also another reason for it. It's more about safety and security. They have mentioned that. They want to keep people safe. So basically, you want to make sure that you protect the people that you're interviewing, especially because this could be a murder case. So I think it also motivates more people to come out there knowing that, hey, this won't go public. This is just us trying to figure it out. Let's get you to come in and let's do what we can to protect you. So I think it's a very smart move, because if Celeste Rivas Hernandez's results come back that it's undetermined, then everything around it is what has to speak for her. It's the circumstantial evidence, the witnesses. So I think it's a very smart move to now make this a little bit more private, see if there's enough that could be pushed towards a grand jury for that indictment. But this is the route, because the body may not give us the conclusion that we need. And the funny thing about that too is when something is undetermined, it's no different than it being unsubstantiated. It's not like nothing happened. We just can't prove it, but it also can't be disproven. So I would think if there's something that did come back undetermined, LAPD is like, yeah, but something still happened. So we have to figure out other ways to make sure we do our due diligence. And I love this grand jury idea, because I think that if we're looking for justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez, and if that's what we're looking for, and that's what we're truly looking for, then let LAPD do what they got to do. Anybody that's against this effort really isn't about justice for Celeste. I just have to put that out there. They're trying to do something to motivate more people to come up front and admit things. And if they have to, they could subpoena. This is a full effort to go ahead and get justice for Celeste. So again, anybody that's not for this, it's insane. And then they'll say, the same people will say, because Harvey's been saying it before, that LAPD is not doing enough. What's going on? Well, why? Because you weren't in the know what they're doing. They don't have to tell you what they're doing. But with that said, they're doing this, and now it's too much. Media, man. Just media.
So that's why law enforcement uses these grand juries. So this is an investigative grand jury. It met for a couple of days. We don't know if it's still in force. My guess would be it probably is, because the LAPD is looking at this, trying to get information. And a lot of people, when LAPD calls, says, we don't want to talk, but they have to if it's a grand jury. So this gets back to David.
I'm good with that. This is justice for Celeste Rivas Hernandez. If the evidence is pointing some way, then I think that's great to be able to get to that person unobstructed that may have information. So no issue with me there.
Call says we don't want to talk, but they have to if it's a grand jury.
Good.
So this gets back to David. We told you that David, even though nothing is formal, the LAPD is viewing him as a suspect in a homicide. They believe it's a homicide, even though the medical examiner hasn't yet said that, and we're told they may never be able to.
There goes the caveat again. It's about David, and he'll tell you it's LAPD believes it's a homicide. And I'm going to tell you something. They probably believe it because it's a lot more than just the results of the body, well, not the body, the results of the toxicology, whatever is able to find out from the medical examiner. That's just a piece of it. That's just a piece of it. But if that part was undetermined, then they have other areas that they can explore to provide the context or the full narrative. So it's not like everything's dependent on her body coming back undetermined. That's part of it. It's part of the evidence. And you don't know what they have. You don't know if there's people in the circle that have admitted things. And maybe at this point, because it's so wide scale, maybe it involves so many different elements. Hey, you know what? We have to make this a little bit more private. So I do think it's a great move. But if you notice here, when it comes to David, he mentions the suspect, mentions that they're looking at it as a homicide. No, they think it could be a murder. But by the way, the medical examiner is not the only part of this that can determine if this was a murder or not. You have other things that could be around it. So with that said, again, if the body comes out undetermined, it's not an end result. It's okay. So what do we do here? Well, let's see what the evidence is around it. Because if I can't get anything conclusive here, can I get something conclusive for what's around it? It doesn't stop undetermined. Everybody's good. It's not. It's not. It causes them to work a little bit more. Maybe that's why they have to do this grand jury too, because they're prepared for the fact that the body could come out undetermined. So now the strength of their case is going to be based on what's around that body, Celeste Rivas, because the circumstantial evidence is going to have to speak for her if the body cannot. And I mean the body, I mean the report, the toxicology. I know the body was already given back to the family. I meant the results. Because technically that is her voice telling us something from beyond the grave.
Viewing him as a suspect in a homicide. They believe it's a homicide, even though the medical examiner hasn't yet said that, and we're told they may never be able to because of the condition of her body. We also, you may know, reported a story over the weekend that we have been told by sources that her body was partially frozen.
So, guys, the funny sources, no names. But when I'm told something from LAPD, captain and a last name, I got to go with who's putting their name out there, the agency that's putting their name out there, the fact that they're a lead investigator. So I know, I got this from sources that no one knows about versus I got this official. It doesn't weigh equally. So I don't care what you're getting from unknown sources and all this other stuff. I really don't care, because at the end of the day, if someone's putting their name on the information connected to the agency, it would be smarter to go with that side. Again, I got sources. There we go again. Sorry, guys.
You may know, reported a story over the weekend that we have been told by sources that her body was partially frozen. The captain of the LAPD came out and said that's not true. We went back to our source connected to the medical examiner, and they tripled, quadrupled, sextupled down and said it was.
I don't care, because most likely whoever that source was, even if that source existed, that means that they lied to you. So what do you expect them to do? They're going to say, "Oh, I didn't lie," and I'm blah, blah, and they're going to resist that. So, but that doesn't say anything. The lead investigation said this is what it is. You went by some word waterlogged, which at the end of the day, we talked about this the other day. Sadly, her body was badly decomposed. She could have been in her own fluids, and that could have caused her fingers to be waterlogged. You know who did a great breakdown of that is Strategic, was it True Crime with Strategic Eyes? He broke that down. There's a short on that. You should watch that. But again, irrelevant. I don't care what your source says.
Partially frozen. Interesting that her fingers were so waterlogged they couldn't get a fingerprint off of it. This is direct from the medical examiner's documents. It says that they couldn't get that fingerprint because.
But it didn't say she was frozen. It just said they couldn't get that fingerprint. And there could be many reasons why they couldn't get that fingerprint. And as we mentioned, waterlog could relate to serious decomposition where there's fluid. And then the body's just sitting there for weeks in its own fluid.
waterlogged fingers. So that is the current state of this case. To summarize, the LAPD is clearly in the throes of an investigation. They're using the grand jury to get witnesses, presumably, to talk that they otherwise could not get to.
This is the coolest Christmas gift ever. These gift explosion boxes are amazing, and the setup is so simple.
To them, David, we're told, is a suspect. We're told there is a second suspect that has something to do with the to get witnesses, presumably, to talk that they otherwise could not get to speak to them. David, we're told, is a suspect. We're told there is a second suspect that has something to do with the dismemberment of Celeste's body, and there is a huge conflict between the medical examiner and the LAPD.
Looks like he's running out of things to say at that point, so he's just reiterating just to kind of hit it home. But guys, he's stuck because now there's nothing being leaked their way that they could twist.
And from LA Magazine would also like to chime in, but before she does, would you like to subscribe?
I want to echo a couple things that Harvey said here. First and foremost, I have said from the start, it seems like LAPD and the medical examiner's office are completely at odds here. And I spoke to a forensic death investigator the other day, Joseph Scott Morgan.
Someone that's not involved in the case, by the way. That's not someone that has direct knowledge of what's happening. Just to let you know, just sometimes they'll put the label and you automatically, in our mind, we connect it to someone that would have direct knowledge of the investigation. But that's not the case here. So it's just someone who's just as outside as I am.
About the possibility of Celeste's body being frozen at one point. Not being frozen upon discovery, but at one point. Now, what he said was...
And guys, by the way, that's a shift because they originally tried to make it sound like she had was frozen when the body was discovered, which caused a lot of people to try to come up with these theories, kind of throw people off. Remember, it's what lawyers do, right? They it's no different here with TMZ, right? You confuse people, you try to shift blame, try to cause conflict. It's just everything but to stay off where you're going. So all these things are red herrings. We have to remember to stay strong and kind of look in the direction we need to go. So all this stuff is just red herrings. We'll listen to it, but none of it really matters. It's really not relevant. But here it is.
About the possibility of Celeste's body being frozen at one point.
Now
not being frozen upon discovery, but at one point. Now, what he said was a medical examiner would be able to tell based on doing tests with the tissue. So they would be able to see if the body had thawed, had unthawed through microscopic cellular tissue. I mean, his words, not mine. But when TMZ got this leak from a source close to the medical examiner's office, my understanding was that testing...
Because you hear all this ambiguity, leak from an unofficial source for the medical examiner's office. I mean, imagine if we really did investigations that way, where I was to hold evidence on unknown sources. I mean, Harvey, how would you feel if I started holding, people, holding them guilty based on evidence or information that's given me from sources that I can't verify? It's leaked out. It's not official. I mean, any lawyer would destroy that, but yet it's funny how they're able to do that here. And the problem is the unknown source, which is BS and unofficial, they wind up trying to solidify it based on the reputation of the media that's reporting it. So TMZ, you're kind of losing a little bit of that reputation. So at the end of the day, that unknown source is just connected to a tabloid that really doesn't have any meaning to me. I mean, it's crazy how the media could run with all these unknown sources, no way to verify the information that they're saying. But if you were to do the same thing to, let's say, someone who committed a crime, and that's all I have are unknown sources, they would bury you in the news. They would bury you. Not enough evidence. Or they're going with witnesses that they're not willing to name. They must be hiding something. They must be deceitful. Well, you're doing it right now. Seems like LAPD is giving us a lot of information, but you're doing the same thing that technically you would yell at us. If LAPD came out and said, yeah, well, we have unknown sources right now that told us D4vd killed her. Let's say they hypothetically, LAPD said that. You would be all over them, questioning their integrity, all this other stuff. But here you are doing the same thing. And this one.
His words, not mine. But when TMZ got this leak from a source close to the medical examiner's office, my understanding was that testing had been done. It had been done to the point that the LAPD deemed this a homicide or a murder investigation.
And guys, my understanding is also a qualifying word, because then if you're wrong, it's like, okay, that was just my understanding of it. So it's not a word of confidence. It's a word of that's very tentative but safe.
Although they haven't come right out and said this was reported by the LA Times based on the petition they obtained by the LAPD blocking the medical examiner from releasing the death records. They saw this information that they are treating this like a homicide. So again, in my opinion, that came from the medical examiner's findings that they don't want out there. They do not want people like us speculating.
Stop. We're not with you. The people like us shows that there's a partnership there. It's a way to bring you in. We're not in us right now. So that to me, sorry, but that to me is an attempt to bring us in as we're partners in this, and we're not. We just want the truth. But all of a sudden you're trying to say like us. No. We're on a different track here. Because again, I agree with what they're doing. I'm 100% in agreement with LAPD is doing. So is a lot of other people. So that's not us. You're not speaking for everyone here. So I don't like that word us. And if you guys want to comment, if you're an us, let me know. But if you're not an us, that would be good for you to comment, because that was kind of bringing us in as if we're in agreement with that. We're not. We want justice for Celeste the right way. And if this has to do it to protect the integrity, to make sure that the things on the front end hold true so we don't have to worry about stuff being ripped apart on the back end, then it is what it is. And it's just so funny, guys, because all the stuff that they're complaining about will be stuff that they could destroy on the back end. So I think that lawyer friend, maybe if that exists, this is going to hurt her a little bit. It's going to hurt her because she can't utilize the media for her client. So she's going to have to wait. And finally, if they do the indictment, which could happen, and they make the arrest, now we go right to, this is what we got. Let's go ahead, play ball.
The medical examiner's findings that they don't want out there. They do not want people like us speculating what possibly could have happened to Celeste and who was involved.
And that's fair, because that's why we're at this right now. It's because people are making too many speculations or being given information slightly to bias those speculations, but they've been caught. They love when people want to speculate, because they could just sprinkle a little thing in there and create narratives to go with the speculation. And next thing you know, the story is so far from where it should be. So we don't want speculation. We want facts. And if the speculation causes a problem, then you stop. It's that simple. You stop, because every time someone makes a speculation, they have to investigate that, and that causes a concern. So I disagree with her statement there, because they don't want us speculating. They don't. You're not the one doing the investigation. You're not the one that knows that's going to be a mess of shit every time someone speculates or creates a narrative that doesn't really exist, and now they have to chase after that as well. But thank God, I think they had all their evidence on day one. I think whatever happened here could have been very sloppy, and they had everything they needed since day one. That's why they're able to bring it to this grand jury.
They don't want to, I guess, hinder their investigation. Although, I mean, at this point, there's tons of speculation. But I do believe that the theory of her body being frozen.
So ain't that funny? She just said they don't want us to speculate. Then she realized that is a concern. And then kind of goes back and says, well, she just justified why they want the security hold, why they want to have that private grand jury, because of the speculation. The speculation has gotten worse these last couple of days. Most likely, probably around when they started doing the grand jury thing, around November, the middle of November. Look how bad it got these last couple of days. So they know when they're getting close to this, they know when the body's coming back. Yo, we can't have any of this anymore. We know where the case stands. We know what our evidence is, and I don't want somebody throwing something in the mix that's going to cause us to have to run around all over again. We're pretty confident where we're at, so let's stop the games. Let's present it to who we got to present it to, and this is the narrative we want. I don't want somebody else coming in later on throwing something in that it really has no value.
Under their investigation, although, I mean, at this point, there's tons of speculation, but I do believe that the theory of her body being frozen at one point is correct based on that. Now, just piggybacking off of this,
a weak qualifier.
On that petition to block the
you see how she went, I believe that theory is correct based on, so she's just, they're qualifying statements there. Back on what? What are you backing that on? What's that belief really being backed on? I mean, I don't know how a belief in a leak that has a source that's not named at this point should supersede what's coming out officially from an LAPD captain who doesn't only put his name out there, he literally identifies himself, identifies the agency, and it's an official statement.
At one point is correct based on that. Now, just piggybacking off of this, on that petition to block the records from being released, the LA Times said they saw a grand jury number, which sort of got them thinking, okay, is a grand jury being convened? And yes, as Harvey said, it's an investigative grand jury. So these types of grand juries could take a really long time. I mean, we're talking months here. It's not going to be easy and it's not going to be fast. However, this is a step in the right direction. The investigative grand juries are used for complex cases where police believe that a crime has been committed, but they don't necessarily have all of the details. They don't have all of the witnesses. They don't have all of the evidence. And with the investigative grand jury, they're going to be able to recommend proper subpoenas. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there is video surveillance, and this is hypothetical, video surveillance of somebody moving that Tesla at the end of July. Now, let's say...
And by the way, that video that was so important to the case seemed like it got dropped into the wrong hands by a certain investigator, too.
Video surveillance of somebody moving that Tesla at the end of July. Now, let's say there are rumors, and I don't know if the rumors are true or not, but that this person who moved the Tesla is not in the country. Well, police don't have the ability to say, hey, get back to the U.S., we want to talk to you. They can't do that unless a subpoena comes from a grand jury. So this type of grand jury is very important to get more information to eventually make an arrest in the case. So I'm happy at this point. I mean, I think, again, that things are progressing, although they're progressing slowly. But the LAPD has made it very clear that they do not want any information out there. I mean, their hand was forced. They finally made their second statement on November 25th, where they said, oh, and this is actually really interesting. What they said was, and this is different from what they had originally told People magazine. I believe it was Captain Scott Williams who told People magazine, you know, there is no evidence that she was frozen upon discovery or that she ever was frozen in general. He added that in parentheses. I cited that. In the LAPD statement from November 25th, he said, or the LAPD said, excuse me, they said there is no evidence that she was frozen upon discovery on September 8th, 2025. That's much different than saying that she was never frozen.
First off, you're interviewing two different people. one, may have a more deeper response and the other one doesn't, but that doesn't mean that the first response is not true. So don't get caught up in that confusion either. They interviewed two different people, and also it's also what they put on the paper, what they decide to document. But with that said, okay, you interview two different people. One could automatically believe that my answer by saying she wasn't frozen means that she was never frozen. That's my answer. That's what you should get from it. You shouldn't apply anything else. If you want clarity, you could say, well, were they frozen before, and they give you the answer. But person was never frozen, and whether there's a caveat to further clarify that or whether there wasn't, it's still saying person wasn't frozen. So maybe that reporter should did a follow-up question then and say, well, can we ask you a question? One more. Could they have been frozen at any time? And he probably would have said, no, there's no reason to believe he was frozen at any time. So that's not the fault of LAPD. That's the fault for the follow-up question from the reporter. So you didn't get the clarity you wanted because the reporter didn't ask the follow-up question. Don't put that on LAPD. That's unfair.
At all, in my opinion. So they put this out in a statement. They also debunked the decapitation, but they also confirmed that the Santa Barbara trip did happen in spring of 2025. TMZ reported that, and that was.
But they also noted there may not be any relevance to that trip either. She's not saying that. I saw that on another show. They were reading from an article, and LAPD had said there may not be no relevance to that
piece of information. They reported that he was in Santa Barbara County very late at night for a few hours, and the LAPD said, yes, this happened, but we don't know if this necessarily has anything to do with the death of Celeste Rivas Hernandez or not.
Good.
I mean, look, they're not going to tell us. Of course, we already know that. So, yeah, their hand was forced. They had no choice but to make a statement. And I don't necessarily think that we're going to hear anything else from the police directly unless, again, their hand is forced by the media. So TMZ, keep up the good work. Come check out our investigation into this case over at LAMAC.com.
So again, you know what? At least she was a little bit more objective towards the end, but then she said, thank you for doing the good work. Bravo to LAPD. Again, this just helps us kind of just continue the momentum in the right direction. But I would love your thoughts, guys. If you like the content, please, I got to buy me a cup of coffee, my description, also on top of the YouTube channel. And I'll keep you updated as it comes. But as always, guys, stay safe.